Well, good morning. As I've said from the very beginning, the extraordinary measures that we introduced during this pandemic were always intended as a last resort. And I stood at this very podium and promised you that these tools would only be used for as long as they were absolutely necessary, and not one day longer. The removal of these measures has always been our objective, and something we have collectively worked towards for months now. We started in January when we welcomed kids back to class and opened businesses. Since then, key indicators have steadily improved. At the peak of Omicron wave, over 4,000 people were hospitalized with COVID-19 in Ontario. That number has now dropped to 1,500. While percent positivity hit highs of nearly 40% in early January, it has now dropped to 13%. And Ontario's healthcare workforce continues to stabilize as we lift Directive 2 and restart more surgeries. Because of this progress, we heard from our Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Moore, 2 weeks ago, and again last week, that we were fast approaching a time when we could safely remove restrictions. Over the weekend, I received recommendations from Dr. Moore on a plan to safely reopen our economy and remove Ontario's vaccine passport system. I've accepted these recommendations. And so today I can announce that beginning on February 17th, we will remove all capacity limits except for sporting events, concert venues, and theaters, which will be capped at 50%. Some higher risk settings will also be capped at 25%. Social gathering limits will increase to 25 people indoors and 100 people outdoors. Organized public events will increase to 50 people indoors with no limits outdoors. Effective March the 1st, we intend to eliminate capacity limits in all indoor public settings. At the same time, and at the recommendation of Dr. Moore, we will lift proof of vaccination requirements for all settings. Based on the advice of Dr. Moore and what we have learned over the pandemic, we will need to keep masking in place for just a little bit longer. This is an important layer of protection that will allow us to proceed with our reopening plan safely. My friends, like all of you, I've waited a long time for this news, but please never doubt that the steps we took together, as difficult as they were absolutely necessary and saved tens of thousands of lives from COVID-19. And we're here today, we're able to take this step now because of each and every one of you, because of our nurses, our doctors, hospital workers, because of every single person who volunteered in a vaccine clinic, and every single person who played a part in this fight. And let me be very clear, we're moving in this direction because it's safe to do so. Today's announcement is not because of what's happening in Ottawa or Windsor, but despite it. On Friday morning, I made the difficult decision to declare a state of emergency in Ontario. The police now have every single tool they need. They have every resource available to them. And we've made progress since speaking to you last time. I want to thank our police forces for their efforts over the weekend. The blockade at our border in Windsor has now come to an end. The Ambassador Bridge has reopened. We have managed the situation at the Blue Water border crossing in Sarnia. Toronto Police Services have successfully contained a second weekend of protest in Toronto. And while Ottawa remains a more complex situation involving municipal, provincial, and federal law enforcement, all three levels of government are focused on ending the illegal occupation. To those who are still there, to those of you who are there with the sole objective of causing disruption and chaos, there'll be serious consequences for this lawless activity. We will continue to raise the consequences against those who are holding millions of jobs and people hostage. A number of personal vehicles were seized over the weekend, and those seizures will continue. Let me be clear. If you choose to use your vehicle to create chaos, you will lose that vehicle and your license, plain and simple. To our brave women and men in uniform, thank you for your service. Thank you for making us of the special powers we have authorized to manage the situation over the weekend. My friends, I know that this period has been one of the most divisive times in our history. And one of the hardest things about this pandemic is the way it's fractured us as a society. Differing views about government policies, the limits of personal freedoms, different views about vaccines, public health measures, and what steps are necessary. All of it has polarized us in a way that we could have never imagined. I've experienced this in my own family. It's been one of the hardest things my family and I have ever gone through. But for all of this, I can still take comfort in knowing that there remains so much that unites us. There's so much that still holds us together, and I take comfort in knowing that this awful pandemic will soon be behind us. And as hard as this period has been, time will heal this pain. And we will come out on the other end of this ordeal stronger, more resilient, and more united as Canadians. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Very, very good job.